My name's Caden Navra.
My name's Brett Tootin.
And I'm Chad Davis.
And we're here to present to you our Big Hill Track wildlife viewing platform and water collection system that we built on the school forest. So some of the objectives that we had agreed upon with our stakeholder was that this wildlife viewing platform would be an educational standpoint and a management perspective for our students here within the wildlife and forestry majors at ABAC. This was also built as a primary water source for the Big Hill Track because this right now is currently sitting behind the office and the Big Hill Track is about a mile or so away from that. That way we don't have to run back and forth if a fire does escape during a prescribed fire. We have this water tank already placed on the Big Hill Track ready to roll for any escape fires. A secondary goal for this project was to have a UTV and ATV access. So that would be, as you can see from this picture right here, lifting the water tank high enough off the ground so that ATVs and UTVs could efficiently access the water rain collection system and water tank to be able to fill up and go out to the fire. This was our visual representation that we built or modeled our viewing platform after, and since there was no actual hard copy blueprints for this project. So going reviewing a little bit of the details: a staircase, a big frontal window, water tank platform, and a rain collection system for the water tank platform. As you can see on our time frame, we started a little bit later in March, and it runs from March to the first week of April. That was because we had a little bit of budgeting issues and along with approval. This is a bigger project, and we will have lots of money to deal with and lots of money to acquire from this, so creating a project from this, is a little challenging, especially when people are wondering why are we spending so much money on the school forest in a short amount of time. But once we did get the budget approved for, we went ahead and started with our materials pickup from Lowe's, a little bit delayed, setting up the 6x6x16 poles for the main support beams on our platform, squared off the tops, removed the come along. That will be explained a little bit shorter in the PowerPoint. Framework for the bottom platform, flooring for the bottom platform, which is our water tank platform, and then moving up to the viewing platform, which is on the top. After that, we cut the notches, finished framing, laid the plywood, and reframed the platform with the agreed upon objectives by the stakeholder because of our time frame restrictions.
So here, this is a list of tools we had to use, which was already provided for us at the school forest. We had post hole diggers to dig our holes for our post. We had to have drills for screwing in the boards and stuff. We had to have a nail gun, which that paired with the screws provides maximum stability and support for human weight as well as the water weight, which the platform will be holding. We had to have levels for our boards to make sure we had it all leveled. We had to make sure it was squared away, so we had some squares. We had some ladders to reach the higher places. We had to have measuring tapes you have to measure the boards, so I had to make sure they were right. And we had a plethora of saws we had to use. We had to have a saw, a skill saw, and a chainsaw. Here's a supply list. We used, as you can tell, 6x6x16s were our main beams we used. We mainly used 2x6x8s and 2x4x8s for our framing. For our plywood we used a 1/2 inch thick, 2 pieces of plywood for our platform, as well as later on 1/4 inch plywood for the walls. We had 12 bags of 80-pound concrete, which is a lot. Here was our supply day pickup. This is the first day we actually got to get hands-on with the project. We met at 7:30 at the school forest with Mr. Rentz to pick up the wildlife trailer so we could transport our supplies from Lowe's to the school forest. Our total was roughly around $2,000 for this project. Here with setting and alignment of the poles, here we have 3-foot deep holes dug with the post hole diggers. There's about 80 pounds of concrete in each hole. Here, as you can tell, are our 6x6x16s. It's 8 foot deep and 6 foot across. Right here is the dimensions of the framing here. As you can tell here, we had some warpage of our poles. We tried to fix it with some ratchet straps, and it popped the ratchet straps and broke them. So we had a talk with Mr. Ford and Mr. Rentz, and we came up with the fix, a come-along system. We used a come-along with a heavy-duty tow rope and a heavy-duty ratchet strap on one side to bring the top of the poles back together. As you can tell, the ladder was in use here, and this is a makeshift ladder to access the top of that pole right there we used. These were later removed throughout the project. As you can tell, it was used. Here's the results from the realignment. These boards right here are used. They were screwed in to bring the poles together at the top. And yeah, as you can tell, it's not perfect, but it's much better than what it was with the top of the poles being aligned to the correct distances. With the water tank platform here, Chad will take over.
So with the water tank platform, we had to come up with a design that would support the water weight. We have a 250 gallon tank going on this. Water weighs 8 pounds to a gallon. So what we come up with is we framed it up with 2x4s. Instead of going 16 inches of spacing, which is most of the time, most frequently used with framing, we went 12 to kind of give it a little bit more stability. You can see that here. This is all just frame board, or these here are the frame boards. This here is just extra boards that were holding the poles together at the time. After we got the framing done, we come back over to the decking boards, which you can see here. We got all the decking boards lined up, everything was square here, and then we moved on to the next step, which was notching and framing. So we originally notched out these poles, which was a lot easier said than done. Our first step was we used a chainsaw to try to notch these boards. We soon found out that's not the way to do it. As you can see here, we figured out using the skill saw, a lot easier, run a bunch of little cuts in it, and then take a hammer and knock out the chips. You got a notch. The notches were cut 1.5 by 5.5, which are the nominal dimensions of a 2x6, which were used to frame the top boards. After the notching, we moved on to the framing. The 2x6 sits in the notch, which gives it a little bit more stability. It's sitting in the structure of the 6x6, which holds it pretty swell. You can get up there, you can feel the difference in the stability when it's like that. As you can see here, we originally had 2x4s going in, but we took those out and added 2x6s, as you can see in the next slide. So the 2x6s here is what we ended up settling with. We actually done away completely with the idea of the staircase system and come up with a hatch system. The hatch itself is 3 foot by 3 foot with a ladder that drops down. The ladder is roughly 1 foot wide. Then we jump over here to this ladder. This ladder goes down from the water tank platform up, so you can get from the water tank platform to the top platform. This ladder here is roughly 2 foot wide and reaches from the ground to the water tank platform, which is roughly 6 foot off the ground. So we go from the water tank platform and laid the plywood on the top, which is a 1/2 inch thick. This platform here, or this plywood here, having that 1/2 inch thick is plenty big enough plenty thick enough for people to walk up down there. With the 2x6s, is plenty stability and it's a lot more safer. As we jump from here, you can see we had another late night here. We have the walls, which are 8 foot from the bottom. We go from those walls is 16 inches over. You lay another frame board, and then as you can see here is our incompleted windows that we finished up on the next day, and that's where we're at for now.
And this right here is the final product where we left off at, with the framing all done for the walls. As you can see, the big window in the front and the back right there of the viewing platform, and here's the side windows as well. They're roughly 3 feet across in size.
So some of the views that we had as our finished project, right there beside Brett, is the frontal view, so viewing down the road and across the hill. As you look kind of panning towards more of the right side of the tower with your back facing towards this structure, you have the sand hill that creeps up and over and down and drains into a hardwood bottom down here. Off to your left, so looking this side of the viewing platform, there is another hill where we are seated kind of in a little declivity but also going down towards the road. And you get to see how this hill develops down into the hardwood drain, good for animal crossing back and forth. And then finally the back sides, as you can see the road right here that connects with the first one where Brett's truck is down there. And you have a very well-rounded view of wildlife being able to cross back and forth between the drainage. There's drainage here, there, and there that encompasses the whole property that our tower was placed upon. Complications that were arising in this, mentioned earlier, were the warped 6x6x16s. We did go through about 2 or so ratchet straps and had to go for the alternatives of using a sturdy tow rope and a come-along system to pull those warped logs back center so that we can then start framing the platforms and building the platforms. A couple of miscommunications between us and the stakeholder and vice versa. Notching was originally going to be done and cut out with chisels, but instead we opted to just go ahead and cut them out on the sides. That took a long time, and we figured out that a skill saw was the best to be able to notch those out. Framing, we originally agreed upon with our stakeholder that 2x4s were sufficient enough for the water tank platform and the wildlife viewing platform. But after a second meeting with him, he went back and said that he would like those to be 2x6s. So we had to pull up everything that we had done, laid the 2x6s, which set us back a little bit, but after completing them, we were fine and went back rolling with our project. As mentioned earlier, we did run into a little bit of partial completion, but that was agreed upon by our objectives and the objectives that we shared with the stakeholder, that because of time and because of the late start, because of the budget and our time restraints, that we would be settling for having this project in one phase and then moving on to the next phase. And as mentioned earlier, time restraints with the budget, pushing us back all the way to March, starting in March, and that's pretty much it for the time restraints. Overall success, we did meet the stakeholders' objectives. We completed the water tank platform, the viewing platform, and the wall framing for the top of the viewing platform. Go ahead. Summary, we completed our purposes for this project was to provide our students at the wildlife and forestry majors at the YOW with education opportunities to go and see the landscape of how wildlife interacts amongst the area that we placed the tower, having a primary water source for the Big Hill tract when any prescribed fires were to take place on that area. Complications did arise, were pursued and they were overcome. Overall success, we made the stakeholder happy, we completed our phase, and that was pretty much the end of our project. The slide didn't work, but we would like to thank all of our sponsors that helped us out at ABAC, our professor, Dr. Lane, our stakeholder, Mr. Grant Renz, the School of Ag and Natural Resources, and ABAC as a whole for helping us get this project done.